Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into a brand new Pilsner from a brewer I've never had anything from prior. This is Chapman Crafted Beer's Chapman Crafted Pils. That is the name. So the brewer is Chapman Crafted Beer. The beer is Chapman Crafted Pils. It is a Pilsner, 5.2% ABV. They are based in Orange, California. So as you all well know by now, Pilsners are one of my favorite beer styles, and it's one of my absolute go-tos for trying a new beer from a new brewer for me. It tells a lot about a brewer. So in terms of label art, this one, very clean design. It's just got their logo on it. I'm sure the camera is picking that up okay, but nothing much else to talk about that. Let's just get it cracked gently. All right, that was reasonably gentle. Poured right in the glass. It's a Pilsner, so we really don't have to be super duper aggressive here. It's going to form a nice head anyway. That's what Pilsners do. Yep. So now we got to slow down the action of the pour just a bit. That's okay. We're not quite going to get the whole beer in there, but that's all right. Let's see. Visually, it is textbook pale straw yellow color. Got a little mix of fine and small medium bubbles. As is typical with the Pils, it formed a nice lush, creamy Pilsner head right on top. So visually, it looks exactly like I'd expect. And I can start to pick up some aromas, but let's get right up over it for a proper sniff. Yeah, it smells quite nice. It smells very reminiscent to a classic German or Czech style Pilsners, but it's got a little bit more of an earthy, bitey hop to it on the aroma, and a bit more of kind of fresh mowed grass. Not picking up as much subtle fruit kind of aroma, but that's okay. It looks the part, it smells the part from the nice creamy head. I'm expecting this is going to be kind of a telltale classic craft Pilsner, and we'll jump in and see if this is an American type interpretation or if this is their kind of take on a classic German or Czech. Let's jump right in. Oh, yeah, that's a tasty one. That's a very tasty one. Okay, before I even get to the flavor, I'm going to let it do its thing. Mouthfeel, very creamy, very silky. Feels like it thickens a little bit as you agitate around the palate, as is prototypical of a Pils. The body on this one is light, medium light. It's 5.2% ABV. That's a little higher than your average, not by much, just a few tenths of a percent. But overall, feels more or less exactly where I would expect it to. What I picked up on the aroma, having a little bit more of a pungent, bitter, kind of hoppy kick in the aroma, does translate into the glass. It's got a nice kick up front. It's earthy. It's not, big kind of West Coast style IPA type hops. This is more like an abundance added of, say, a classic Fuggle, or maybe some Saaz or Spalter or something like that. Hallertau, maybe a mix of multiple different noble hops, but it very much puts me in mind of a classic German or Czech style Pilsner. That's the vibe I'm getting out of this beer. It's got a really nice present flavor profile to it. In terms of where the hops go, it is that earthiness, and it's got a nice kick of bitters up front, but that immediately kind of starts sliding right into the malt bill. And yeah, this one is kind of your prototypical kind of baked good kind of malt bill, but what I'm not really getting on this one is a ton of like honey-like sweetness, which you get on a lot of Czech and German Pils. I'm getting a lot more kind of influences from the hops and maybe subtle notes coming in from the yeast as well. It's got a bit more of a fruit-forward kind of character to it. So it's got this classic baked good as well as the nice kick of bitters, but then it's got this underlying fruitiness. To me, this tastes full on pear. That's the fruit that I'm getting out of this one. So overall, very, very nice. This might be their attempt at brewing a classic German or Czech recipe style Pilsner, but I'd like to think that this is an American craft interpretation of the original Pilsners. And that's what it tastes like to me. And it's exceptionally well done, and I'm a big, big fan. Whether or not you're going to say this is a strict Czech style, a strict German, an American interpretation, whatever it is, a day's in, it's a Pilsner, And it is a Pilsner for sure, and it's light and refreshing and packed full of flavor. It's really, really nice. Another thing I can tell you, the finish on this one, it's longer than your average. It's got a little more presence of flavor, but it does take a while for that classic slight dryness that you get on a Pilsner. Some are a little more intense than others. This one's a little more subtle, and it's on the very, very back end. It's kind of the very tip and middle of my tongue. It's not the entire palate, not the walls of my mouth or the back of my tongue. It's just the middle and the front. So you get that little bit of drying effect, but it's not quite as intense, which actually does help extend the length of the finish and really let those flavors kind of linger around a little bit longer. So let's just jump back in here for second intensification on sip, see if I missed anything. Really, really good. Yeah, nice kick of bitters up front. It's got that fresh mud grass quality to it. That opens up into a little bit more bitter intensification, running up to about the 5-second mark. Then it starts to open up into the underlying malt bill character traits. Baked goods, crust, biscuity, kind of toast-like qualities. Bitters are still kicking. Fresh mud grass, settling about 10-15 seconds now. And then there's this ripe pear that comes in the background. And it's really nice the way it pairs and kind of segues from the bitters and those kind of baked good qualities right into the pear. And then they're all three just kind of interweaving. So it's got that maltiness, it's got that bitter, and it's got that fresh ripe fruit quality all blending together on a very slow, longer than average Pilsner finish. And I expect in the next 15-20 seconds or so, I'm finally going to start to get a little bit of drying on the palate. This one does take a while. Flavors are still kicking, still getting malt, I'm still getting bitters, I'm still getting pear. And there goes the dryness. Starts on the tip, moves its way back a little bit. Just a nice clean beer. This is an exceptionally well done Pilsner. I mean, this is prototypical, brewed in the spirit of the classic German and Czech Pilsners. It's just an American craft version, and it's really, really nice. I am a big fan of this one. I love Pilsners. This is exceptionally well done. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, count my scores. When we come back, we will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Chapman Crafted Beer's Chapman Crafted Pils, a Pilsner. They did say it was a German-style Pilsner, so aiming for the traditional European bent. 5.2% ABV on this one. Chapman Crafted Beers is based in Orange, California. So starting with the aroma. The aroma on this beer was very nice. It was very much a classic Pilsner. You could smell the hops, you could smell the underlying malt bill. There was a lot of fresh baked good aromas coming through as well as some fruit. Overall, very nice and above average pungency. The aroma gets a 10 out of 10. For the taste, I absolutely loved it. As I was sipping on it, I was saying, this really tastes like a little more hop forward version of a classic German or Czech Pilsner. And frankly, after seeing that they categorize it as a German Pilsner, I'd say job well done. I think they absolutely nailed it. Yeah, nice intensity, classic Pilsner profile, just Pilsner done right. Taste gets a 10 out of 10. For the body was exactly right for a Pilsner. Sure, this is slightly higher, slightly. We're talking tenths of a percent higher than the kind of middle of the road average for a Pilsner, but really no deviation. It was exactly what I wanted and expected for the style. Body gets a 10 out of 10. For the mouthfeel, very similar story to with the body. It did not have a ton of resistance to it. It got nice and creamy when you agitate it around the palate, and there was a nice little crisp dryness on the very end. And, yet again, just a perfect mouthfeel for a Pilsner. This gets a 10 out of 10. For the finish on this one was longer than average, but in a good way. The flavors were quite a bit more pungent on this one, and that really came through because of that nice hop intensity. But even on the end of the finish, like I said, it had that nice, classic, crisp, dry finish you expect from a Pilsner. Finish on this one does get a perfect 10 out of 10. For the head and retention, Head and retention on this one did a great job. Classic Pils gets a 10 out of 10. For the appearance, yet again another category. It was exactly right. That classic straw yellow, pale color, exactly what we expect to see. Perfect 10 out of 10. For the balance on this beer I personally really appreciated. The balance of the malt and the balance of the hops was great. Had a little bit more present hop bite to it, a little more bitter presence to it, but overall it was exactly what you expect in a well-balanced Pilsner. I think they nailed it. Balance gets a 10 out of 10. Feeling of the intangible, subjectively, I loved it. It gets a 10 out of 10. Finally, as an example of the style, it swept it in all but one category, and barely. It does get a perfect 10 out of 10, which brings the total score on Chapman Crafted Beer's Chapman Crafted Pils to a 98 out of 100. This is an absolute top-tier Pilsner. If you're a fan of those little more bold European, German, in this case, style Pilsners, this is absolutely one I would recommend that you seek. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live to YouTube, just turn on the notifications, hit that bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.